Hello, Dieter.
Hello.
You are in the focus, special focus on you in the exhibition Performance Process. In this focus, there is a series of documents here, and the video, and the concept. It's really a big story. It's possible for you to talk about these first works with the documents, the black and white documents on the walls.
Well, for me to see all these activities that I did in the public room on the street is like à la recherche du temps perdu. Yeah? When I see this, I'm catapulted back into a world which is almost, sometimes more than 45 years old. And it's always, for me, fascinating to see what I did then. And I remember what were the decisions and why did I do it and so forth. So it's always nice to walk through your past eventually. Also the musical videos, of course, are very much part of my past. I mean, I'm still doing musical videos, but this was very special when I began, because my first videos, when I did them, the expression video didn't even exist. And these are not real videos, it's all 16mm film. And the so-called videos all emerged from my so-called experimental filmmaking. So it's, for me, always nice to see this. I never look at these things only when they are exhibited.
Why did you choose the medium of performance in the late 60s, beginning of 70s to, let's say, start an activity in the art field?
I never really choose or have chosen anything. To me, it is a kind of, how should I say, it was very unpredictable what I was doing. I was not like a conceptual artist who was looking to invent conceptual pieces. My first piece ever was when I counted these pieces of metal on the street, 100,000 pieces, over a period of a whole week, from 8 to 12 and from 1 to 6. And only years later I learned what was driving me to do this. But it was not like the other way around, that I wanted to be a conceptual artist and then I had to find ideas. These pieces, they came to my mind and are a very important part of my biography. Like, for example, when I counted these pieces, I wanted to do something which is not justifiable. I did not want to do something that can be measured. I wanted to do something which is totally empty, which is nothing, which is even stupid, which everybody can do, but it's like myself, only on this planet, because like this piece is only on this planet because I want to do it. There is no justification in the content. It's an empty piece, it's nothing. Like me, I'm nothing. I have been thrown onto this planet 70 years ago. I'm visiting here for maybe another 20, 30, hopefully 40 years, and I'm nothing. The only reason why I'm here is basically to find out who I am and why am I here. And everything I did was kind of part of me asking this question to myself.
In the performance behind you is near the Kunsthaus in Zurich, and in this performance, Jean-Christophe Mann met you.
No, he didn't meet me there. No? He was just passing by, and maybe 3 or 4 weeks later, I met him in a bar in Zurich, and he said, aren't you the guy who did this thing? And I said, yeah, I am this guy. And he was preparing this very fantastic exhibition, Visualisierte Denkprozesse. And spontaneously, he was a new director of the Kunstmuseum Lucerne. He offered me a big space and said, you can have these rooms and you just exhibit your work there. And I said, but I have nothing to exhibit because I never did things for a museum or inside the museum. And I had to then kind of find ideas to be in the museum. And a lot of people always ask me, well, but you did these things on the street, why did you go to the museum? And a very important reason for me to go to the museum was, you know, for my parents, it was not easy to understand what I did. You know, when suddenly I was sitting on a public ground and counting pieces of metal, it was not so easy for my parents, you know, who thought, well, is everything fine with Dieter, you know, because it was a strange thing that I did. And whenever I had a show in a museum, like with Jean-Christophe, Visualisierte Denkprozesse, I think this was in '69, and then in '72 I had a Documenta. My first thought was always, that's very nice for my parents, you know, to hear that I'm in a museum, that I'm in a context that kind of is creating a normality as an artist, so to speak, you know. And yeah, it was the reason, one of the reasons why I went to have exhibitions in the museum.
And what kind of relationship do you see, or did you have in mind at the time, between this performance and the experimental film acrobatic?
Well, I used film in two different ways. Like this acrobatic pieces, you know, I used film just as a medium to make a documentation of these, again, very kind of empty attempts to do some acrobatic pieces that are basically a joke. They are nothing, right? They fail. Also, I try very hard, but I can't do it. That was one way to use video or film to document. But then, with my experimental filmmaking, for me, film was like a moving fresco. You know, I was using film as like when you write music. I had a partiture of images, and I was experimenting with whatever you can do with a camera. But the most important reason why I started to make films was because I was very, very insecure in whatever I did. You know, I was full of doubts, and whatever ideas I had, they would like go like sand through my hands. I was never able to finish anything at that time in my early 20s. And film, for me, had the big advantage that I was not confronted immediately with the result of my doing, because it was a little black box, the camera, and I had my ideas, and I did single frame animation and double exposure, triple exposure, running the film backwards and throwing the camera in the air and whatever. And I was liberated not to be confronted immediately with the result. It took like 3-4 days till these films came back from the processing, from the laboratory. And for me, this was always like Christmas, you know. It was like the projector, and I was very nervous. I was putting the film in the projector, smoking cigarettes, and looking at what I had done. You know, it was for me like a wonder, a gift. And I did not really feel that I was the guy who did it. It was a wonder that these things happened, you know. And it was very important for me, almost like in a psychological, therapeutical way, that I was able to do something. Whatever else I did, I tried to write, I tried to do whatever, and I always had ideas that it should be much more important than what it was, you know. But in the camera, I was liberated because I couldn't see what I did.
And after these works, there is a big change. There is a meeting with Boris Blanc, and there is a story of Yellow.
It was not so much of a big change. My musical, I mean, I never considered myself really a musician, but my sound making process started much earlier when I showed my so-called experimental films. I was very often sitting in front of the screen and I made noise, I made live sound with these films. I used my voice as an instrument. I wouldn't speak words, I was just using my voice as a rhythm instrument. And the idea was that I never carried anything with me. Whatever I found in the streets or in the cinema that very day, I put on a table and I created noise with my voice and maybe an empty film can, or sometimes I found some old instruments in the cinema from the times when they still played music in the cinema. I remember once I found a big bass drum that I used, and that was really the beginning of it. And a producer, a record producer, he heard me doing this, and he asked me whether I would be interested to perform with a punk band that he had managed. Yeah. And this was the first time I was on stage and used my voice in public, really, as a so-called musician. And I met Boris because this first single that I had done was called Cry for Fame. You know, we did 200 pieces and it was very ironical to call it Cry for Fame. But Boris found this record and he went to the producer and said, look, I'm much better than this guy. You should make a record with me. I'm much, much better. And he brought the two of us together. He said to Boris, okay, I do something with you, but you have to use Dieter's voice. And for Boris, this was a double catastrophe. First of all, he did not want to use any voice, because every voice was kind of, for him, like if a painter has finished a work and then somebody else comes and does something inside the painting. And the other disaster was that I was a very bad singer. You know, he had ideas of really great pop singers, if at all he would use a singer. He had to live with this double disaster. He didn't like the idea at all at the beginning, you know. But he got used to work with me at the beginning, and when we had, which happened quite soon, our first hits, you know, like with this song Bostage, standing at the machine every day for all my life, and used to do it. It was all because I was not a really great singer. I couldn't hit the notes very well. It was all on one note. And this he kind of accepted because it was more like a rhythm instrument, you know, this da 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 da, you know. And the reason why we had success with this in the black community of the United States, it was a big dance hit out of the blue, was because the people thought, the black people, the black community in the United States, that we were two avant-garde black rappers from the West Coast, you know. This is how we got into the music industry and signed deals with Warner Brothers and so forth, you know, which was not really planned. We never sent tapes or little records to anybody. It just happened.
And about the Yellow musical video, how did you create them? Thought about them, the concept, and there are a lot of humor, of course.
First of all, they are not illustrating the music really, you know. They were, I mean, some later videos that have also another approach, that they kind of illustrate the music. But at the beginning, I used my experimental movie making, and this was like the background, these moving frescoes of our performance in front of that. You know, we work with what you call back projection. You project on a special silver screen, and if you have the camera in a certain angle, then you can light up the characters in front of this screen so that they are bright enough. It's an old Hollywood technique, you know? But it was like the stage design, so to speak, for us was these experimental, so-called experimental films in front of which we performed our little nonsense very childish performances, you know. And the charm of these videos, that's why children all over the world like them, is because we never took ourselves very seriously, which is a very serious thing, not to take you very serious, you know.
With Yellow, there is only one live concert.
One live concert.
Only one.
Yes. When we signed this deal with Warner Brothers, we got a lot of money for it, because for the industry, the most interesting act is an act that has a so-called natural born hit, you know, that they don't have to play the pianola of you know, in the music world, in the music industry, as you can read in this book Hitman. There is always a lot of money involved, especially in the United States, you know. But if you have a natural born hit, and this was a natural born hit, like some other of our pieces, they never really promoted Yellow. We were lucky that our music ended up in popular films, or like the first record that was a success there, this thing Postage, was played in black discotheques first, and then the most important radio DJ, Frankie Crocker, on WBLS. It was a big black radio show. He played it on 100 syndicated FM stations all over the United States, and overnight it was a big hit. But when we signed the contract, these people in Warner Bros., they said, we don't want to sign two phantom musicians. We want to see you at least once in a live performance, and this is why we did it. Boris never liked to do it, and the performance was a kind of a disaster, because it was in a very well-known black dance hall run by the mafia in New York. It was called Roxy. 5,000 people in there, and we had a kind of mixed feelings to perform there. The stage was a boxing ring in the middle, and 5,000 only black people. Yeah. And when at 2:30 in the morning we were performing there, there were 2 or 3 big black guys that would bring us onto this stage. You know, Boris already was very afraid, because when he walked into this Roxy in the hall, there was a long table near where the people left their coats, full of knives and guns, and they searched everybody. And he said, "Dieter, this is like crazy, you know. I mean, this is maybe we shouldn't do this, you know." And anyhow, we did it, and like 10 minutes into the concert, because the electricity in this place was illegal. You know, they had stolen the juice, as they say, from wherever cable. You know, there was 10 minutes into the concert, there was a total blackout. No more music, no more light, total darkness. Boris was jumping on the floor. He thought this is the end, you know, because he thought now something very strange is going to happen. And so the first concert, the first evening, of course the electricity came back, but it was very strange to finish the concert. You know, it was like an interruption of maybe 10 minutes. And then the second evening, we had 2 evenings planned, was okay, and the people liked it and so forth. But to give you another example of the luck and a lot of the kind of also misunderstandings, when we walked out, a lot of these black kids came to us and said, "This is fantastic, you know, we like this song, pizza party, you know." And I said, well, to the guys, what do you mean pizza party? And in the refrain, I sing, "Everybody needs somebody, sometimes." And they understood, everybody, pizza party, you know, sometimes. And everybody said this was the pizza party song, you know. So you see, there is and I'm not being coquette about this, you know, there's a lot of luck and craziness behind the success of Yellow, of course, because we both could not play an instrument and couldn't read notes, and I was not really a great singer. We were forced to be original. You know, if you learn to play guitar very well, you have the problem to behind your technique to find your individuality back. Like a classical musician, if he can play Chopin's A-Moll sonata forwards and backwards, he has to give this his personality. And we never had this problem because we could not play anything. So we had to invent sources of sound that were totally different, like with a very early kind of, well, Boris is rightly called the godfather of techno because he used techno before it existed. He worked with tape loops. You know, he would go, this was his bass drum. He used newspapers on the table that would go, and he made a tape loop, and this was his drum, you know, his drum machine. Drum machines didn't really exist when he started, you know. So obviously we knew that what we did was original because it was so dilettantic. But a lot of people are original and dilettantic and don't have the luck that Yellow had, you know. I mean, there are so many great avant-garde musicians that never had any success, and this crazy little band out of the Red Factory in Zurich with a studio as big as this table and some little cheap machines and tape loops on it ended up selling 15 million CDs, you know. I mean, it's to me still a wonder.
Do you still have projects with Boris?
Oh yeah, sure. No, we have a new CD coming out next February, which is finished now, and we are doing the whole. There are 14 songs on the CD, and we make like a little episodical opera. There are going to be 14 little videos of the 14 songs.
Wow. And you have also another musical project, Out of Chaos.
You gave
yesterday a fantastic concert here at the CCS.
Yes, I was very happy.
Great pleasure.
I was, you know, as I'm not I don't have a great routine on stage, you know, so I have not been on stage now for maybe 5 months, and with this band not for 2.5 years, so it's always also an adventure to do this, you know. But last night was a very inspired concert for us. There was a lot of duende in it, you know, a lot of feeling and a lot of understanding of the musicians, of each other, and I was very pleased. Also, the room here is fantastic. It's a great sound we had, and it's very compact. It's not just a big hall where you feel you are an anonymous, lonely guy on stage. You feel an audience that is close, and I was very happy with that concert. And of course, also, why did I start Out of Chaos is a total coincidence. You know, we did a film called Touch Yellow, which was a kind of an opera type film about a fake Yellow concert which never existed. It's all digitally constructed, the concert halls and everything. And some promoter wanted us to go on tour with it, and I felt this is not good enough, that's just our film. And then I met the guitar player, Nicolas Rütimann, and the wonderful fiddler, Tobias Preising, and I said, I want to give a little more to an audience, so let's write 3 or 4 songs. So as a part of an evening with Yellow, I was performing these 2-3 songs, and this was the beginning of Out of Chaos, which then later became a real band with a real program that toured, I don't know, we had probably 60 concerts over the last 4 or 5 years, with first this band that you saw yesterday, and then with another constellation with some Berlin musicians who also produced the first album of Out of Chaos. And I like it to be on stage. It's always nice to go out there and be nervous, and you never know what's happening and how is it going well or sometimes not so well, and to achieve this live feeling, especially when you have a good response and you get into a dialogue with your audience, is a wonderful feeling. You know, it's great. I really enjoy it. And I don't think I enjoy it because I'm a vain guy who wants to present himself. It's not that. I could live easily without that. But it's a great feeling to be on stage for, like a concert normally is 1.5, 2 hours, and then you know you've made it. You know, it's fantastic.
Dieter, thank you.
Thank you guys. Thank you
so
that
much.
you give me the chance to be here in this wonderful environment, to partly be, as I said, à la recherche du temps perdu, and to have a chance to sing in a great room. It's a real pleasure to be here. Thank you.
Thank you.
Schäufele Wasser schöpfen, jeden Tag und ohne Ziel. Der Zauberer fängt an rumhüpfen, schon ist auf dem Besenstiel. Jetzt ist der Schweißer und Schaman am Eisen hoch der Labenie. Der tote Kopf, ein Scharlatan und ein Sprotz, das ist er gewesen. Wie soll man ihn beschreiben, den göttlichen Gestank, der durch die feuchten Sommerschluchten Babylons schmiert und als Hymne an alle Süchte dieser Welt den Getriebenen um die Nase streicht als ständige Verführung zu allem und jedem. Dampf steigt aus den U-Bahn-Schächten und 4 Teufel, gepeinigt von der Qual der Dauererektion, heizen die Luft über dem weichen Asphalt, bis sie sichtbar wird und die Ruinen von Alphabet
somewhere, is this my place? Clouds in the sky and I'm ready to race. Should I be run fast? Should I be waiting for a last? Should I be right to let this planet? Or should I just be running just for cheddar? Running in circles, why never ride? Really going nowhere, ridiculous climb. Running in circles, why never ride? I see man, and I said down. Running through a terrible, immeasurable ground. And I said down. The place of my life now puts me down. And I said down. Well, the writing on mine, eyes running over the devil's empty mind. Running like a dog on speed. I make a fool of myself and I take the lead.
Running like a dog on speed. I make a fool of myself, but I take the lead. Dog on speed. When I make a fool of myself, but I take the lead. I make a fool of myself and I take the lead. Running like a dog on speed. I make a fool of myself and I take the lead.